I'm talking again to Lisa Graves from the Center for Media and Democracy about their groundbreaking, amazing study, Outsourcing America Exposed, which you can find at outsourcingamericaexposed.org. Again, that was one example, probably the most extreme example, but I want to get to a couple more that you guys have actually written about since we had you on about a month ago. And one is about the Monterey Peninsula and water. And that's another one where it gets really, really frightening because everybody needs water to live. It is something, a very basic human need. If you don't have water, you are going to die. Let's talk about Monterey and water.
Well, so water is another area where, we've been surprised by how much of our water system in the U.S. is now operating under private control, and what an expansion there is in what the water privateers want to call investor managed water. They have sort of a cute name for it, but the fact is that in a number of cities, the water utilities and also the sewage treatment plants have been privatized, and often those two processes are handled by the same government entity, the public utility, the utilities, and so there's been an increased interest in private corporations running our water services and our water systems, and some of those companies are actually foreign companies. They're not in the United States. So, for example, we know that there's an ongoing battle right now in Washington State that's been happening for a couple of years, where a private equity firm that has some operations here, a company called Macquarie Capital, and its subsidiary is trying to get a hold of control of the water utilities in Washington State. I think, from the standpoint of national security, from the standpoint of democratic control, it makes no sense for Americans to allow their water to be controlled by a private company. Water is the most precious resource. But leaving aside foreign control of our water, which I think is completely wrong and we should not allow, within the United States, there are a number of corporations that have been active in trying to take over water supplies, and one of those companies is American Water, which
how can you not like American Water? It has the word American in it. It's great. That sounds like the best water possible.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm not drinking American water, I'm not drinking water at all.
It's great. It's great branding, right? So they're a New Jersey company, and
where the cleanest water is,
yeah,
New Jersey.
American Water, right? New Jersey. So they're in New Jersey, and they say that they provide water to 14 million people and provide sewage treatment services in 30 states, and they have made in the process they've made 2.9 billion in revenue last year, and the CEO makes a couple $1 million a year. And so, water is profitable. Managing our sewage systems is profitable. But, if a corporation owns your water or controls your water, you're a customer, but at the end of the day, you're not actually the person that they serve. They're serving their shareholders. And so, Citigroup, one of the big banks, has been talking about how water is, quote, an asset class, and how water is going to be ultimately the single most important commodity asset in the world, because you have to have it to live. It will exceed oil as an asset to control. And I don't know why Americans would want to have their water in the control of corporations, private corporations that can sell off those rights to anyone they choose. I think water is a public asset that should be held by the public and controlled by the public, and it certainly shouldn't be sold off to be controlled by private companies. So in Monterey, there was an effort to fight back on for-profit control of water and push for public control, citizen control of water.
How's that going in Monterey?
Well, it's been quite a battle. There's been litigation. There's been citizen groups, and in fact, I just got a letter to the editor yesterday, basically from the head of one of these water associations, extolling the virtues of privatizing Monterey. But in fact, the public citizen groups, say that they're very concerned about what's happened, with that privatization, and that privatization effort, in part because this is a question of managing those assets and whether they're being managed for the benefit of the people or whether they're going to be managed, for the benefit of the corporation. And in that instance, in Monterey Peninsula, they have, argued that that the water resources have been mismanaged and have led to and basically cost people in that part of the country $100 million since 2004 because of the company's failure to do things that would help secure water supply to that, peninsula. And California obviously has many parts that are more arid than other parts of the country. And so there are salinization projects and there are efforts to secure access to other rivers. But in some ways, that's not the primary motive of a company. The primary motive of a company is profit. Versus maybe the interests of the people, which their primary interest may not be profit. It may be to secure a long-term contract that provides long-term access to water for people to live. And so I think it represents some of the ways in which there are inherent conflicts between the interests of people and maybe the interests of a particular corporation, if it's this type of operation that provides a basic necessity to people.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I'm talking to Lisa Graves from the Center for Media and Democracy about Outsourcing America Exposed. And just the idea that we can't have anything at all in our society that that a company can't make a profit off of. I mean, again, like we were saying, water is something every single solitary creature on this planet, humans and everything, needs to actually survive. Without it, we wither up and we die. And even like you were saying before, the fact that many people, even the State Department has said that, rightfully so, that most likely due to climate change, the wars in the next 50 to 100 years are not going to be fought over oil. They're actually going to be fought over drinkable water. And the fact that we would risk that, handing that type of thing over to a private for-profit company that, again, their sole purpose as a corporation is to make money and not to actually necessarily give the best service or necessarily to have the water have the most long-term goals. It is so unbelievably dangerous and short-sighted and immoral. It's really just your jaw drops and something so important could be farmed out and outsourced.
Well, that's right, and I think the notion of a profit motive sort of inspiring efficiency is one of these myths. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But one of the things that these Wall Street traded firms, in essence, inspire is short-term gain over long-term gain. Often, with the quarterly financial reports, the reports to Wall Street every quarter, how are you doing on profits, every single quarter, that incentivizes sort of shortcuts versus long-term planning and long-term investment, as Winona Howder, who leads Food and Water Watch, told us when we were working on this story. Managing these resources, managing our water resources, for example, actually has a moral imperative. It has a sort of an economic imperative to manage those resources for our long-term benefit, for the benefit of our lives and our children's lives. And that's sort of contrary to the short-term benefit of whether Am Water or some other company makes a profit in this coming quarter. In fact, the incentives are sort of reversed. That the notion of maximizing profit today for a company and its shareholders or its CEO's compensation package is sort of inherently in conflict with the public's interest in preserving these assets, managing them for a long term, and making the investments that might reduce profit now in order to have a long-term benefit for the sustainability of this resource for people's lives and the community for the long term.